Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Crockett, just start off with a really basic question. I think I read once or was told that when you make hydrogen, the heat content of hydrogen or a hydrogen derivative is only about 1/3 of that of natural gas. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's kind of a problem, right? It's going to drive up the expense dramatically, right?
Well, yeah, if you think about what natural gas is made of methane and you're letting go of that carbon atom and all the energy that comes with combustion of that carbon. So,
Okay. And Mr. Marsh, again, just to explore, by the way, I enjoyed our meeting a while ago, and
Yes.
Thanks for considering the great state of Louisiana as the ideal place to.
We will be building a plant for you in the great state of Louisiana, Senator, with Owen.
Now, part of that seems to be, though, that I gathered that for green hydrogen, it's like 38 kilograms or 38 liters of water to make one of hydrogen. Now, Louisiana's got more water than we know what to do with most of the time. But nonetheless, that also seems to be kind of a limitation on the production of green hydrogen.
So let me make 2 points. The first point, Senator, is that it's about the same, for a kilogram of hydrogen is about equivalent to 2 gallons of gasoline. And the amount of water required is about equivalent to 1 gallon of gasoline. So it takes about 5 gallons of water to make a gallon of gasoline. Mm-hmm. That being said, what we're doing in California is actually really exciting. We're actually using wastewater, which we're actually cleaning up from the local community and using it in our electrolyzer product. And some of that wastewater is actually going back to the local community to provide water to the area. So I think us in this industry are continue to think through creative ways to leverage water to, and I'm from Philadelphia, that's why I don't say water right, creative ways to leverage water to allow the community to benefit from the activities we're doing.
Mrs. Amron, you've spoken of the need for regulatory reform, and we've kind of emphasized NEPA, but I think there's a lot of things on the table. Can we actually get to a net carbon neutral economy without significant regulatory reform expanding beyond NEPA?
Thank you, Senator. I believe we can, and as an industry, we're committed to doing so. We are very focused on decarbonizing the existing natural gas value chain. We recognize that methane emissions need to be eliminated. We also recognize the opportunity to further decarbonize the value chain through carbon CO2 sequestration.
Now, can you do that without significant regulatory reform? Because it seems like sometimes you're walking in mud, deep mud, to get things done.
I will say on CO2 sequestration, the updates to 45Q, we fully support. We think that'll be important. We also think that permitting for sequestration, it needs to be streamlined. It is a very slow permitting process, and there's not a lot of staff at the federal level that will, if we want to scale up sequestration, we absolutely do need to streamline.
It does seem like we've met the enemy, and he is us when it comes to getting that, us, I should say, like EPA. Louisiana asked for primacy in terms of how to do it. I think I was told we had like 32 geologists, and EPA Region 6 had 6, and it took them like almost a year to finally send it to DC EPA.
Yes.
And our primacy, of course, has to obey all their rules. Let me ask you, in the infrastructure bill, which I worked on with my colleagues, there's a lot in there to help transition a state like Louisiana, which is very carbon intense, into one which is kind of a 2050 economy. Speak of your company. You started to speak of your company's kind of effort along those lines. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. Louisiana is a great example. I mean, it is a really important state for us and for our country. We are one of the largest gatherers of natural gas in the Haynesville, which is one of the lowest emissions basins in the world. We can produce natural gas in the Haynesville Basin, Louisiana, with incredibly low emissions. We are gathering that. We have just announced a pipeline to bring that to the coast for LNG exports, to increase LNG exports to our friends and allies around the world. And we are working to develop a CCUS project alongside that will decarbonize that project. We do need help in streamlining the permitting process.
Now, that should be intrastate. So are you still, so is it the CCUS as opposed to
sequestration will require permitting in Louisiana, but it is intrastate.
And so you're okay on the pipeline, but it's
Well, it delivers into interstate pipelines as well. So to get the LNG capacity built, I mean, it is such an interconnected network that we operate in the United States. We can build, you know, an intrastate pipeline, but we're going to hit a need to expand the interstate system in order to get it to the LNG terminals that we need to expand. So they are all codependent across the value chain.
One more thing, because Manchin and Barrasso explored, and you said quite dramatically that you used to calculate $1 million per mile of pipeline, and now it's $22 million. For that, can you give us the cost basis of the intrastate portion of that pipeline as opposed to the interstate?
I can follow up with you on that, sir, but it is significantly cheaper to.
I want to make sure that our values are still, we have an apples and apples now versus now and before.
Yes.
But we'll get that. Thank you. I yield.